And Marlon James joins us now live from London. Marlon, thanks for being there and congratulations.
Thanks for having me.
How's your voice? I heard it 24 hours ago. It was so hoarse after the partying. I was wondering if you'd be able to talk to us tonight.
No, I think it's fine. Plus, it's early morning, so you're getting the best voice. Afterwards, I'm switching to my bedroom voice.
Very good. Well, you can do that during the course of the interview if you really want. But let's go to this remarkable. Let's go to this remarkable book of yours. Key among the many characters in this book are the men who tried to assassinate Bob Marley in 1976. Now, you say this event has haunted your whole life and actually changed Jamaica in really fundamental ways. Why is that? Why was it so important?
Well, it was important to me precisely because I was a kid and couldn't understand it. And I think sometimes we underestimate children. Even if I didn't understand what was going on, I certainly could understand the fear in people's eyes. And this was one of the events that you knew something went too far. Something was different. And right after this shooting, and even after the peace concert, was one of the most violent elections we've ever had. Topped only by the 1980 election. So it was kind of this sort of after this the deluge kind of moment. And you don't have to be 30 to realize. I think I certainly realized something was different at 6. Remember, Marley was untouchable. And not because it was just sort of a universally accepted good faith that nobody touches the tough gang.
Yeah.
And somebody did. And his house as well was a type of sanctuary where at any given moment the prime minister of the country and even the head of the toughest gang would be there playing dominoes. It was such a sanctified, peaceful space. So it was as much an attack on the house, funny enough, as it was on the people in it.
Now, why did you find the would-be assassins and their voices to be the stuff of a novel? Why did they inspire you in this way?
That's interesting because they're really the brief in the history. It wasn't just being tongue-in-cheek, but the stories of these men are pretty brief. They've vanished, and I think as a novelist, I'm always inspired by mysteries. I'm always inspired by what people won't tell me. I'm always inspired by where the story trails off. It's like you're asking somebody a really important question and they trail off halfway. Then it becomes doubly important. And I think this is one of the great sort of unsolved mysteries. And I wasn't trying to solve it, but I'm very interested in people who leave a really huge impact, whether good or bad, and then just vanish. Where did they go and who's responsible?
And through these characters, we start to understand the incredible political backdrop of the 1970s, where Jamaica is caught up. It's right in the middle of the Cold War politics. The island is divided into two warring camps. Each side has its garrisons of supporters tightly controlled by gangsters. How did we end up in this kind of space? How important was the Cold War to Jamaica?
The Cold War was very important because in the 70s, we were leaning more and more towards socialism. In fact, the Prime Minister, Michael Mann, said they were pursuing a democratic socialism. And as you can see now in the present U.S. election with Bernie Sanders, the second people hear socialism, they think it's another step towards communism and the specter of that. So we ended up almost inadvertently becoming a major player in the Cold War because there was a fear that we're becoming communist. And I remember that. Even at 6, I remember the graffiti. Down with communism, ism and schism, all of that stuff. And that made us a sort of an unwitting player in our own sort of James Bond drama. Doing the research, it was like reading, I felt like I was about to write a Jean Le Carré novel.
So how is it that these two key political figures, Michael Manley, the socialist, and on the other side, the free market opponent, Edward Seager, how do they both end up having gangsters, basically, controlling their supporters in these garrisons in the city of Kingston?
Because that's just the nasty history of Kingston itself, that when you have poverty, when you have mass sums of people migrating to an urban area but no facility to take care of them, you're going to have slums. And these slums became very, very huge, and the territories became very, very huge. And the fact is, whoever runs West Kingston runs Kingston. With all that poverty and all the tribalism, they became became very instrumental in enforcing this sort of government of fear in these neighborhoods, and which is why when politics subsided and drugs took over, they were almost ready-made killers or ready-made gangsters. They were ready to operate because they spent so many, from the 50s, fighting these wars of territory, these wars of influence, these wars to get people elected. And why wouldn't you? If the politicians show up one day with free food, with rice, with the type of things you'd never ever be able to buy. With one of the big areas of fighting was government contracts. Who gets to fix the roads?
Yeah.
So, these things then become battles that are stained with blood.
And into this chaotic environment, which Bob Marley is trying to heal. Actually, that was the whole point of the peace concert, wasn't it? Enter the CIA. The CIA comes in, and you've got a whole bunch of CIA characters in your novel. They're basically field agents and the local head of the CIA station there, and they are essentially, you hear their voices in the novel, but they wreak havoc, don't they? I mean, they're bringing in weapons, supplying it to one of these groups of gangs. Is this what really happened?
Yeah, I said at the beginning of my book, if a Jamaican proverb, if it not go so, it go near so. If this is not the truth, it's something close to it. I was still writing a novel. And as a novelist, I still reserve the right to be fanciful wherever I want to. But some of these stories didn't need help. They didn't need me as a fiction writer. The Caribbean playbook was a lot like the Latin American playbook. In fact, quite a few of the CIA guys from Ecuador and Paraguay and so on did end up in Jamaica. If you're a scholar of political history and Cold War and so on, and events like that, the same names keep propping up. At the same time, I wasn't trying to write a totally veiled nonfiction. I still actually do like writing this type of literary espionage, but it's important to remember, to note just how broadly the Cold War was fought in these islands, and that at the time they thought a lot was at stake. Jamaica is 90 miles away from Cuba. And Cuba was certainly not about to go back to a pre-communism state. So the stakes were really, really high.
Now, there are echoes in this book, it seems to me, of the American writer James Elroy, who peoples some of his novels with CIA agents, with corrupt police and gangsters and other sorts of operatives, just like you do, and they're all involved in Kennedy's assassination. In some of his books anyway, did you actually find a lot of inspiration in Elroy's novels?
I had huge inspiration from Elroy. In fact, Elroy's American Tabloid was kind of my Bible, in the same way Don DeLillo's Libra was his. It was really something that was actually stuck on my desk for a while. I'd go back and check it because there's so many things that he does there. This is one of the most crucial turning points in American history. May have been the darkest period of the entire 20th century. And he tells it through the marginal people, the people who don't make history books. And he also tells it with this really rich vernacular that's as much a participant of the world of the novel that he's talking about. And that was a huge, huge influence on me. Somebody made a joke at a press conference, is this the first crime novel to win the Booker Prize? I'm like, I don't know, but if that's what you're going to say, I'm totally claiming it. Now,
the key villain is a psychopathic gang leader, Josie Wales, whose story spans the whole book. Tell us about him, because despite his violent nature and his murderous nature, you actually describe him as having a sparkling worldview.
Yeah, it was important for me whenever whenever I'm writing characters, whether they're heroes, villains, whatever, that they have to be complicated. I like to and complicate the experience for the reader, so you can't totally dismiss him. And he is somebody who he does some horrible things, including murder women. He's done some terrible things, and he has the most. His head is the one most screwed on tight in the book. He's the one who realizes the games that the CIA and the politicians are playing, and he's the only one who realizes that the worst thing that they could possibly do is kill the singer, because then you turn him from a live enemy to a dead martyr. And it makes the reader experience then complicated, because you can't just lump him in, oh, this is a terrible character, and I'll just put him there. He was also a good vehicle to talk about the hypocrisies that go on when powerful people get poor people to do their dirty work.
Now, this is also, however, speaking about other writers, something you appear to have learnt from Jane Austen, of all people, how to love, how to learn to love your unsavoury characters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because Jane Austen, especially in a novel like Pride and Prejudice, and again, nobody would ever expect me to say that in a lot of ways, Josie Wales is my most Austenian character. But in Pride and Prejudice, the most unsavory characters tend to be the ones with the most realistic worldview. Everybody thinks Mrs. Bennet is this shrill, hysterical creature. But at the same time, she's the only person who realizes that when Mr. Collins takes over her house, he has no obligation to take care of those women. They can starve in the street and nobody would condemn him. She's fighting against time, and she's the only one in the novel with a clue. Yeah. So, and Jane Austen was very. I think a lot of people admire her, but I don't think they realize how sly she is.
Let's segue back to Marlon James, in spite of your inspiration of Jane Austen. Now, there are hundreds of characters in this book, hundreds. 14 of them speak with their own voices. So, and I've actually heard you say that as a writer, the first person you have to shut up is yourself. Why is that?
Yeah. Because it wasn't a novel where my worldview, my viewpoint was important. I've written novels like that, and there's nothing wrong with that kind of novel. But I knew pretty early on that this was a story that I had to throw to the characters and let them tell it. It couldn't be poisoned with my worldview, my bias, what I want to get off my chest, which is not to say that my viewpoints didn't filter into some of the characters, particularly in the female character, Nina Burgess. But it was very important for me to do what John Gardner calls it, the vivid continuous dream. That at no point should I appear, at no point should the sustained dream of the novel, whatever it may be, vanishes and you can see the author's pen at work. And that was very, very important to me.
Now, there's a kind of postmodern touch where your own book title, A Brief History of 7 Killings, appears in the guise of a New Yorker article written by another character that we first meet as a journalist for Rolling Stone. His name is Alex Pierce. What's his function in the story?
His function was, at one point, in a way, storyteller. In a way, because this is a novel of quite a few more than 7 killings. I think I wanted a survivor, and he's one of, I think, only 2 characters that make it to the very end of the novel. At the same time, I wanted the outsider's view of Jamaica, particularly from somebody who thinks he's an insider. But the outsider's view, because none of the events in Jamaica happened in a vacuum. And he sort of represents that. The irony about Alex Pierce is that he's actually not a very good writer. That was kind of funny. His New Yorker article would never appear in the New Yorker.
He's been tortured and made to read his own writing, which is a comic, grim scene that reminded me of Quentin Tarantino.
It's sort of a Julius Caesar, Cicero being attacked for his verses.
Now, speaking of Tarantino and the movie side of things, when I first read A Brief History, I immediately imagined it as an HBO series. And now I hear...
Oh, wow.
And now
You're a prophet.
Well, indeed, I must be a prophet, because now I hear that this is actually going to happen. It reminded me of The Wire, for example, in many respects. And now I hear that we're actually going to have an HBO series based on this. Are you going to be writing the screenplay?
I am, actually. Certainly the first few. And, things are moving pretty well. We have a director who's very, very interested, but I can't reveal it because if I tell you, I'd have to kill you. And it's,
And I can actually believe that, having read the book.
so we're moving ahead, and everybody's super excited. But it's great that we have a director who's already interested and sold on the idea, and it's been great. I think it was pleasantly surprising to even myself that I can write a script, because novelists can sometimes have issues transferring mediums.
Well, I mean, you do have a remarkable voice, and your characters have remarkable voices. So one final question. Any idea when we might actually see this on television and all be waiting and downloading every part of the series simultaneously?
That I'm not sure. I know that we're excited enough to move as soon as possible, but I can't really say at this point.
Marlon James, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, a privilege. Congratulations once again, and look forward to speaking to you when you come to Australia.
Thank you.